hello, everyone. So, well, first of all, I must make a quick apology. The
What for?
the compilation ghosts that I put up on the title seems to have disappeared from my files. So we've just got the coward poltergeist to deal with today, and I'll put the
We
compilation
could
up
have a
next.
joke about that.
Yeah. So
We
yeah,
could have a joke about that one, Mike.
yeah, yeah. So anyway,
The ghost disappeared.
yeah, compilation
Hey, it's
goes.
all good.
Yeah, yeah,
People realise, darling, we're trying our best in hard times. That's
yeah,
the best thing
yeah,
here.
yeah.
You know, our show is getting better quality stock in it now. I shouldn't say it like that, better quality stock. We're getting more real live stories now, which is amazing. So if you are watching this and you do want to be on our show with any sort of paranormal video or just a simple story, Mike or myself can read it out on air if you don't want to do a video up. Anything regarding angels, time slips, ghost apparitions, weird things that just don't make sense. Please let us know and email us. So in the comments, I will put my email there as well. So yeah, come on board and be a part of our show, guys.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Good.
Yes. So one thing I did do today, Mike, I shared your video with the lovely Jean messages.
Yeah.
The way that you're putting those videos together, honey, is amazing. I love the graphics. It's like you're David Attenborough of the spiritual world.
Heaven forbid, but okay, I'll take that as a compliment.
I really do like the way that you talk, the gentle world turning, so it makes us think and contemplate on the words that are said.
Yeah.
So good on you, darling. I'm really grateful that you're putting those videos out. I'm more than happy to share them.
Thank you. Yeah,
it's all good, darling.
So I mean, the message there, I spoke about it before because I had it all written out. I just never had the time to record it, and I managed to record it this week. But the message is that even though there's a lot of people who are just bystanders, as it were, and just have the thought of, we want change and we need change and do nothing else, because humanity is all connected. They are in the collective, and eventually they will start taking action. But the sooner they do it, the quicker this all ends. And that's what I was referring to as the 100th monkey. It is actually, in effect, what she's talking about, the 100th monkey effect. So
that's right, yes.
The sooner everyone gets that thought and does some little bit of action, no matter what, the quicker we have a world of abundance and the joy for everyone. Because, as nice as it is sitting in the coffee shops of Vienna and going down Maria Hilferstrasse and shopping, that isn't going to change anything. So you need the intention, and you need to make some kind of action. You can't be a bystander in this frequency that we're in now in the world. The bystanders,
we really,
you can't be a bystander.
I want to elaborate on that, Mike.
Yeah.
Over the past 2 years, we have really seen the consequences of when people have an idea of what is right, but they are too gutless or cowardly or scared to stand up and say no. And we can't be those people anymore. It's now time where we must stand up. We've got to face those fears and come through with our courageous and confident selves to say what is right and what is wrong on this planet. And, I've been saying it for 2 years now that
or more.
We're in this imbalance of good.
I think it's coming up to 3 years.
Yeah, so, we're in this imbalance where the bad energies are gaining and those on the spiritual side are falling behind. But we're seeing that
Yeah.
tipping point now
Yeah.
going in our direction,
Yeah.
and we've really got to push these people down
Yeah.
so they do get, we look at the universal laws, Mike. Universal law of compensation, universal law of cause and effect, universal law of law of attraction.
Yeah.
So the more, as you said in that video, the more we think of the outcome that we want, the more it will manifest into the reality. So, we've got to start fighting this.
Yeah.
There are certain people around the planet, you and myself are included in this. We're the battlers, we're the warriors at this point, but we need more on arms.
Yeah.
And all we've got to do is get, it's not like batter up and go out there, the old batter up out of Marty McFly from Back to the Future, batter up, but we've just got to think of what we want.
Yeah.
And it's that easy to create that energy frequency, like you said in that video, where it does emit outwards and it eliminates all this negativity around the planet. There is so much misinformation that they are deliberately, in my own opinion, that they are deliberately putting out there. We look at a certain country starting with U and a certain country starting with R. Now, I can tell you that Nord Stream gas line between Finland and Spain, that didn't break by accident. And I think I know who did that, and it was neither of those two countries. It was the other mob on the other side of the world that have to stick their nose into everything. If
Well,
you
actually,
know who I'm talking about.
When I put up the spiritual report this week, what you said would be confirmed. It was the other people.
Well, interesting. I got intel just today that there were 2 military jets seen refueling in the vicinity of where that breakage occurred, and it had 3 letters on the side of those jets.
Yeah.
And I call them, I actually call them now the United Psychos, because some of the actions of this damn person in charge over there, if you know who I'm talking about now, I think I've given it away. But, we look at the actions of this guy, I don't know how he's still in charge. He has totally lost the plot. Like,
most likely he isn't in charge.
Well, I look at a person, I've spoken on podiums many times in my life. There's 2 ways off stage, left and right. How can he look around bewildered? Which way do I go? And it's like, is there an option? Is there a door 3 here? I want door 3. I don't know which way to go. And you think, this is the man, North Korea, China, Russia, and all these other countries look at this man like, you got to be kidding me. What lunatic is this where he doesn't even know left or right takes him off stage? What's he like behind the scenes? What's he like when he's signing all this legislation and rights and bills, etc.? Oh, my God. I'm just going to go back to my lemon tea because that's what I'm drinking tonight, guys, because my voice is still not right. I'll tell you what I'm drinking. It's lemon, so I've got my lemon, right? There's my slice of lemon. And I've got turmeric, ginger, and honey in there as well. So that's what I've been drinking now for 3 weeks while I've had this thing with my throat. And I suppose I should be drinking more of it. But at least when I talk now, I've got to just save it because right now even it's starting to get a bit sore. So, the turmeric is awesome because it's a natural anti-inflammatory. So the honey and the lemon's awesome too. Yum, yum, yum. And hopefully the ginger in there does some stuff as well. So yay. So there you go, guys. Natural remedies is what we've got to get into.
Last week's message, spiritual report, one of the things were that between now and the spring equinox, many people, and I imagine spiritual people, are going to have problems with the throat chakra. So,
And let me just explain, guys, this is why I'm now wearing my blue tourmaline. This is good for your throat chakra. If you've been watching my videos on YouTube, my own channel, I've been wearing this now for over a week. I'm not taking it off anytime soon because this little energy buzzer, it is a little energy buzzer. So he's helping my throat at night when I'm asleep because I wake up and it's all great. But through the day, obviously, talking to the cat and talking to my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got to stop talking to the cat, Mike.
The Zen Master, Linda. Zen Master. Don't stop talking to the Zen Master.
You nearly made me spit out my tea.
Well, I tell you, I'll let you. I'll let you finish your tea. We go over and hear what Katerina has to say, and we get the show rolling. Okay, here we go. We'll be back.
Beautiful, fun-loving, fear-defying, earth-shattering, life-embracing friends. It's me, Caterina Campagna, coming to you live from Italy. Let's start in the region of Italy known as the Alps, the Northern Alps, the Milanesian Alps, a region called Val Camonica that has a weird, or not so weird, depending on your perspective, a ceremony in which they go and capture a figurative wild creature represented by a snake with horns, and it's called a Balsadic, which interestingly enough, translated from ancient Greek, is said to mean king of snakes, king serpent. This creature, he is represented by a man dressed as such a creature and captured and brought into the village, and he recounts bolsedinas, which is a kind of a roast. They are odd gossip, kind of funny gossip that happens around the area, and also predictions for the year to come. And once he's finished recounting these tales, he is then released back into the wild. Interesting, huh? And they don't know why it happens just there. It also happens in France and Spain. The only correlate, as well as the Isle of Man, but the only correlation they have found that it is along a sea route of where trading used to happen in ancient times, even before Italy was conquered by Rome. Interesting, huh?
Now let's go to the town of Giubia in Umbria. Now in 1220, there was a wolf that absolutely made his claim to this town, fearing nobody. Everyone who went to try to go hunt him down after he went after and killed all livestock and even managed to destroy a few people. He was just fearless and remained untamed. Even people that tried to hunt him would disappear under his tyranny. So finally, St. Francis was called upon this region to go and see if he could tame the wolf. So the wolf had been, for a while, laying in front of the gates of the community and would prey upon anyone foolish enough to dare enter. So St. Francis comes along with followers in tow a few feet away from the gates, made the sign of the cross, and then approached again. And the wolf had his mouth wide open, waiting for Francis to enter into it. But instead, Francis made the sign of the cross again, said a prayer, and the wolf, guess what, became docile as a little lamb, even putting its head in St. Francis's hands. Now, it is said that the prayer went something like, if you stop preying upon the townspeople and all the livestock, you will not go hungry. So the wolf came back to the main part of town with St. Francis. And St. Francis once again did the sign of the cross and recited the prayer in front of the townspeople. And the wolf once again laid its head in St. Francis's hands. And that is the miracle of the Lupo di Cupo.
That's all for now, my constantly searching, constantly beautiful, constantly brave. I love you. Ciao, belli, from Italy. Remember, always stay curious, my friends.
There you are. Old Francis of Assisi, I
She's
think
gorgeous, isn't she?
yeah, you know, she's been through quite a lot in the last few years, let me tell you. And to come out and do what she does and shine the way she does, is quite incredible, really. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
she's gorgeous.
yeah.
Love her. Yep.
So,
So let's have a look at my notes.
yeah,
This wolf whatnot, that's the one that most intrigued me, Mike.
yeah.
You know, what's your take on it with the wolf?
Well, in Italy, people of Italy can be quite superstitious and they do have some strong beliefs. So I think that can affect any outcome. On the other hand, could be an old wives' tale. I don't know. I believe in the power of prayer, and especially if it comes from an ascended master, which effectively St. Francis of Assisi is. Again, I would like to think that's possible. I would like to think it's possible, but knowing the Italian culture, it somehow could have ended up like a Chinese whisper. You know, so
Yeah.
I'll
True.
keep an open verdict on this one.
Well, honestly, I wanted your opinion because, you know, you're close to that area.
Yeah.
And so you'd know sort of where these occurrences happen. You know, if you said to me, oh, Linda, did you hear this thing that happens in Australia? Obviously, because I'm here, I'd
Yeah.
sort of know something maybe more than what the average person knows. You know, so that's why I thought I'd just throw it straight over to you to find that one out.
Yeah.
But, you know, as you said, darling, you know, a lot of these stories are handed down through generations where more drama, more sensationalism
Everything, yeah.
gets added over the years. You know, Chinese whispers generates into this big fabricated story.
Yeah.
So you don't know really what is believable. You know, I was just watching this show last night about Bigfoot.
Oh,
And this guy takes people on tours out in the top of Oregon where the Sasquatch, I think they call him. Yeah, where this guy lives, and he's sitting there, and you know, you've got to remember these forests, they've got tree trunks as big as my house.
yeah.
That's how round the tree stumps are. So they're hundreds and hundreds of year olds, these trees, and they're sitting there on this downed tree, you know, and it's like sitting on top of my house, it's so big, and they're listening in the darkness for the noises. And I thought, wow, how magical, whether you heard something or not, just to be there with that sort of history of the plants around you, where you're in that majesty, you know, that it's a majesty of magic. You know, I'd expect fairies and goblins to be walking around in the scenery, you know, with all the ferns and everything growing up over all these tree stumps, etc. It was so beautiful, you know, to watch it. You know, they didn't get any evidence at all, but how nice was it just watching this place, you know? So hopefully, you know, this wolf situation in Italy, you know, there should be a guy doing tours. Oh, we may not see the wolf, but I'm going to take you down the garden path to where it may have existed. You know, people do want to watch that sort of stuff.
And just Look who's just popped in. Katerina's popped in to see us.
Hello.
So, because she's in Italy right now and not stateside, so because it'd be 4 in the morning for her or something like this if she was in
Yeah.
America. So there we are. So, okay. Well, let's move on to our first one. And it's the Coward Poltergeist. I don't know what you think about this guy. His naivety, I think, gets him through it quite well. But we'll talk about it after. I find him quite amusing, actually, in his naivety of it all. But let's have a look here, see what you all think.
Mhm.
Stop! Let me see you. Stop being a coward. Table. Breakfast bar. Stop! The banging does my head in. Are you a demon? Shit. Are you a demon? He said. Do you fear that you'll go to hell and not heaven if you move on to heaven? My God forgives everyone. All you've got to do is go. Just go to the light. Move on. Leave here. There's nothing for you. You're a piece of shit. I'm not talking anymore. It don't like you calling it. Okay now. Well, sure enough, here I'm going back to sleep. Leave me alone. You're not scaring me. I'm going back to sleep now.
There was much more to that, where the spirit said that his name was Demon. Sorry, his name was Vlad. And the guy said, I don't believe you. What's your real name? And there was this sort of interaction, but it went on and on and on and on and on. But you know, what do you think, Linda, here? I mean, he's clearly not a paranormal researcher and has used some unorthodox ways of communicating with him. And in many ways, you know, by saying, stop, leave me alone, actually is not the right energy to get rid of something like that. because you're actually submitting, you know. So anyway,
Okay, I've made a lot of notes on this one, Mike.
yeah,
And then I've got to end it with the quote from my 16-year-old daughter. Okay, so I'll explain. When I'm watching these videos, sometimes, especially the ghost ones, I'll call Tashi in so she educates herself as well
yeah,
as to how to be a paranormal investigator and to debunk, etc. as well, okay? So she watched it with me when I watched it the other day. The first thing that I want to extremely stress here is you never ask an entity if it's a D word.
yeah,
You never do it.
no,
Because as soon as you say the word, you're creating the word.
yeah,
And if this wasn't a D, chances are, because you're saying the D word and they could be listening off in the ether,
yeah,
they come through
hone
as
in,
well and start really giving
yeah,
people grief in their houses, okay?
Mm.
So you never use the D word when you're doing paranormal investigations, okay? Now, the other thing that I didn't like that he said was go to the light. Now, he does not know who this is. It could be his grandmother trying to get his attention that she's trying to say, I love you. And by him saying, go to the light, she could be there screaming at him, I don't want to go to the light.
yeah,
I'm here. I'm come through to be with you. You don't know these things.
yeah,
So, and also, if you've got a ghost who doesn't know they've died, what you're doing by saying go to the light, you're actually creating a very traumatic experience for them
yeah,
where they're realizing, hang on, am I dead?
yeah,
So unless you do it very tactfully, and, you know, like me with the Shelley ghost, where it took me 3 days trying to get it through to her very gently, supportively, and most of all, respectfully, because we're about to get to Tashi's quote. Now, the other thing I want to say here is apps. I don't believe any apps out there can bring in ghosts.
no,
It's up to the ghost whether or not it comes through.
yeah,
So these apps that people now use, these paranormal apps, yes, ghosts can use them and spirits, etc. But it's not the app doing the work. And that's what people don't recognize. They think it's the app that's getting the ghost to come through. But the ghost could be sitting there thinking, you got to be joking me, mate. You're an absolute idiot. I'm not going to say a word to you because of you're such an idiot. Okay? So it's the ghost who dictates. And then if that's the case, why would you need an app for anyway?
Yeah.
Because in my experience, they can ring our phones and
Yeah.
talk to us themselves.
yeah,
They don't need an app to say their name.
yeah.
Okay? All
And
right.
just before
So
you,
now we go over
yeah.
what
I was just going to say, I've
I just
had some of these apps just to do experiments with, and a lot of them are really crappy. They've got pre-programmed words, and there's one where it shows where there's more activity, and you can see this dot, and it's either coming down the stairs or going out the door. But when you let it run and run and run, it's like a mix. So they're just different patterns.
yeah.
It's not really spirit at all. It's just a program.
And you just identified something else I wanted to say too, Mike.
Yeah.
These apps have access to your microphone. So if you're there talking for 2 hours before you turn it on, it's listening through the microphone even though you haven't accessed it yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're there saying, oh, yes, it's a scary night and, I heard that there's a story that a guy died here, then it recognises those words. So if we say, oh, who's here, it'll say a guy. And you think, oh, my God, there's a guy here because you've already said it through the microphone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't trust him. Anyway, so Tashi was sitting here with me watching this the other day. And I've got to admit, Mike, the effects, if this was fake, I really like it.
Yeah.
Because the first table that fell over, I slowed it down and Tashi was watching it with me. And it seems to be legitimate. I can't work out how they did it, okay? That bar stool in the kitchen, the 4 legs, it actually flips around and then the last 2 legs go up in the air to make it go over. So in again, we've got 2 legs that have done one's pulled it around and then the other one's gone up.
Yeah.
So again, very, very good if it was fake.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was fake, okay? It could be, but I'm not going there. But I'll tell you what Tashi said. This is straight from my 16-year-old daughter. Are you ready? She said, you can understand why the ghost is attacking the house because that dude is swearing at him.
Yeah.
So that came from my 16-year-old daughter. So, and she was absolutely right because if you want a ghost to come through, you certainly don't attack or swear at them.
No.
There's different ways of communicating with them. That whereas this guy is showing his amateurism, his ignorance in how to talk.
Yeah.
If he's talking to a ghost like F off, your bloody thing, what's he talking to his wife like? How does he talk to his dog? How does he talk to his co-workers? So that's where you've got to remember ghosts are people who have died. They're people. Talk to them with that same respect as you would to your neighbour, your best friend, your husband or wife. So, and you'll get much better quality activity and responses, even if you're using one of these silly apps that I don't like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like it.
I just think
like it.
this guy is just someone, maybe it seems to me that he's not even really into the paranormal or anything like this. For some reason, there's an attachment there, or like you say, a loved one really trying to communicate, and he's got no experience on how to work with this. So,
and you know what the elephant in the room is, don't you?
Go on.
There's an elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The big question, why was he sleeping downstairs?
Yeah.
He might be sick. We saw him walking around, so there's a good chance he could access the stairs.
Yeah.
But I would say that he was sleeping downstairs because that's where all the activity happens.
Yeah.
And he certainly did not act scared. You're in the middle of the night and dark and a table flips over and moves around. Everybody else would have been leaping out of bed petrified.
Yeah.
So he's obviously set it up, or it happens so often that he's used to it, like someone like me.
Yeah.
Because that wouldn't faze me either. I'd be just lying there thinking, oh, yeah, I hope that doesn't come over near me.
I kind of think that he's there to because it's happening frequently. I don't know if he's married and got a family, but he wants to protect the family, and he feels by being down there he can contain it. I don't know.
Yeah.
The important thing is I think it's genuine. I think you do as well, yeah?
I actually do think it's genuine, Mike. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't explain how that table flipped and rolled the way it did. When you slow it down and you see how it goes up in the air before it moves, and changing direction like that is extremely hard to create. Okay, because you've got to use like magnets going up, then a pulley system or a pulley system with another pulley system, and you'd see where the connecting wires and stuff are, because it happens so fast.
Well, believe me,
So-
Linda, tables can do some incredible movements.
And that's why I like watching your table tipping shows. And I'm going to plug that for you without you even knowing, Mike. So
Thank you.
on this channel, guys, Medium Mike Cavalli, Mike does table tipping, where his guide comes through and it's sort of like a Ouija board, but he's using the table.
Yeah.
Please know that Mike is extremely professional at this. Don't try it at home because you don't know what's coming through.
And Mike
But
couldn't use the Ouija board.
Jean comes through, who's Mike's guide, and the messages that they get are extremely accurate. So there you go. You might want to check out his messages from Jean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Super.
There.
Thank you for that.
Well, next week, Mike, there's
Yeah.
a good chance I'll be plugging my new book because it's nearly finished.
Super duper. Okay,
There
we'll
you go.
give it a good
This
plug.
week's all about you, darling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. So where are we going now?
At the Chicago time slip, and my favourite of all fears, lifts. My number one, because I've done a lot of astral travel where I've been stuck in lifts. I now know the reason for that, behind all of that, which turned out to be a very good reason. But yeah, so I've got this understanding with lifts. So anyway, let's see the Chicago time slip. Nothing to do actually with my experiences. It's just this is the type of lift I always ended up in the astral. So here we go.
In 1934, a woman by the name of Miriam Golding had the most bizarre incident after she entered an elevator with a fiancé in Chicago. There were so many people in the elevator, and when the doors opened, Miriam had inadvertently got out at the wrong floor. But because the elevator was so crowded, she found she could not push her way back in and figured she would have to wait for the next one. But this was when things went completely awry for Miriam Golding. As she looked around, she found she was no longer in the store, but instead found herself standing at a busy railway station. But how did she get there? The railway station was abuzz with activity, with many travellers rushing to the train amid the sound of the announcements of arrivals and departures. How did this place have any connection with the store she'd just been in? And she tried to join up the dots in her head as to how she could be one moment be in a store and the next on a busy railway station. Believing there must be a simple explanation to what had just happened, she made her way to an information booth to seek further clarification as to her whereabouts, but found that the woman in the booth completely ignored her, as if she were invisible. Now totally bewildered, Miriam left the railway station, and when she got outside, found the weather mild and sunny. When she was in the store in Chicago, it was autumn, and the weather she was now observing told her it was definitely not autumn, and she quickly realized she was no longer in Chicago. Miriam walked around in a confused state, trying to get her bearings. And as she looked around, she noticed that everyone around her seemed to ignore her, as if she were not there. Just like the woman at the information booth on the station. Then she came upon a young man standing at the sidewalk, looking as confused as she was, and decided to approach him, and to her surprise found that he was able to see her, unlike everybody else around her. The young man seemed equally relieved that he was visible to Miriam and smiled, saying, "I guess you're a bit lost too." Miriam and the young man walked together down the street, bewildered by their whereabouts. The young man then told Miriam what had happened to him. He said he'd been playing tennis in Lincoln, Nebraska, and had gone to the locker room, but when he came out of the locker room, he found the tennis courts had disappeared, and in its place was a huge railway station. It was the same station that Miriam had appeared after exiting the elevator. The two kept walking until they reached the ocean, and over the waves they could just make out a sandbar where several women were sitting and casually chatting amongst themselves. Then Miriam was able to identify one of the women as being her fiancé's sister. Then the woman out on the sandbar appeared to notice Miriam and began waving and shouting to her. The young man attempted to swim out to the sandbar, which appeared to be only a short distance away. And even though he considered himself a good swimmer, no matter how hard he tried, he made no progress in reaching the sandbar and returned to the shore frustrated. But as he looked back, the sandbar suddenly vanished into thin air. Miriam then closed her eyes in exhaustion and disappointment. Now exhausted, she was suddenly overcome by the sensation of floating through space. After appearing to hover in darkness, she suddenly opened her eyes and found herself sitting on a stool in a music store back in Chicago, which seemed to be in the process of closing for the night. Miriam figured that she'd been there for at least several hours. Disoriented, Miriam looked around for her fiancé, but could not find him, and decided to head back to his home. When she arrived, her fiancé was noticeably relieved and explained that he had lost her in the store and had waited for her to come to the right floor before deciding to go home. Bizarrely, the fiancé's sister, who Miriam had seen on the mysterious sandbar, claimed that she had seen Miriam in town and had even called out to her, but figured she'd been too absorbed talking to a young man and hadn't noticed her. So where had Miriam been, and why should she see the fiancé's sister on a sandbar while the sister had seen her in town? But they could not reach across to communicate. Why did they appear to be separated by a strange barrier? And what became of the young man? Had Miriam entered into another reality or another dimension? Had Miriam simply had some sort of blackout outside of the elevator and had somehow hallucinated the strange series of events?
You know, Linda, all these time slip stories, they can't all be imagination, lies and exaggeration and bullshit, you know.
That's exactly what I wrote down.
Yeah,
How can they be hallucinations?
yeah.
as soon as the sister confirmed that she saw her standing there with the guy,
Yeah.
it's not a hallucination now.
No.
You know, some of them may be. I'm not saying they all are and they all aren't, you know, but there's a lot of evidence that supports that then all of them aren't hallucinations.
Yeah.
That, you know, and how, you know, I like looking at the commonalities, Mike. The same thing happened again as it did in a time slip story that we did a few weeks ago, where the guy said no one interacted with him. They all avoided or ignored him.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in this, where she said everyone ignored her.
Yeah. So
we're looking for those commonalities that prove this, like NDE stories. That that's what I like doing, the commonalities. So
do you think it's possible? Do you think it's possible, Linda, that they can't see them because it's actually the astral body that's there? Because she said she was, you know, in the store for about 6 hours, so presumably she wasn't just standing there, she might have been asleep or something.
Yeah, but then why didn't someone interact with her and try and wake her up?
Yeah.
Or,
I know,
you know, there would have been some sort of interaction. If you're standing in, like if she's just frozen because her mind's gone somewhere else, if she's physically still in that shop, why didn't anyone walk into her? Because then, that would have probably brought her back into this reality. Or someone said, hey, we're going to call an ambulance. And then, when she comes back through, she's on an ambulance to on the way to hospital or something. Or she is in hospital, but 6 hours later. So there's a lot that supports that the physical body does move location too. With that bilocation, you know. Then we have to look at doppelgangers. You know, let me just throw doppelgangers in. But my research on doppelgangers, that supports that the physical body stays where it is, and it's an ethereal, like spiritual consciousness that goes somewhere else and manifests it as an apparition that people then observe. So it's a weird one. It really is a weird one, Mike. You know, because you look at the story where those girls went into that hotel and they were drinking and eating there. So pity they didn't bring back souvenirs with them, you know?
And as we mentioned...
I'd love to find a time slip where someone picks up a piece of paper or a newspaper or a coin or something that gives credibility to the fact that they've made this time warp thing occur, you know? It would be really interesting to get one of those, but why don't they?
Maybe the possibility is that inorganic material can't transport itself.
Don't know. But they were still wearing clothes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's a strange because we spoke before about the couple who were in France and they stayed in that guest house. Old policemen in old uniforms. They even paid with money and said how cheap it was. So there was a lot of interaction there.
And if their body was still in the reality of where they were, and that was all like an ethereal spiritual event, then what happened to their bodies? Why were, you know, like those two girls that were on the side of the highway, they broke down in the desert. After a day of not drinking in that sort of heat, they probably could have died of heat stroke. But they didn't because they went into that other reality of the time slip and they were there. And then they came back hours and hours later where, you know, you got to, you know, that was a good one because of the heat, you know, especially without being hydrated, they could have passed out. Or was that a hallucination due to the heat? But we can't say it's a hallucination because there's too much evidence to support that it's not.
I mean, as
the
always,
more we do of this, the more.
I mean,
I was just going to say, the more videos, time slips that we show, the more frustrated I get, right? Because I want definitive proof that this exists. So, you know, I can understand it with science. You know, I've already proven it. I think it was last week when I showed how we can bend time. But, you know, science proves it. But I want someone to come back with, like, a photo of them with say, someone from history. You
Yeah.
know, that sort of thing
Yeah.
where it gets tested and they say, no, this is not a fake. You know, like me going back to 1950, the day of the Queen's coronation.
Yeah.
And, 1952, her coronation. So you're standing there in the crowd and there's a photo
Yeah.
of you standing there
Yeah.
in the crowd at her coronation,
Yeah.
15 years before I was born type
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
That would be so impressive,
Yeah.
but wow, it's
Yeah.
all good.
Yeah.
Maybe there is already proof out there. You look at those, like the ring out there with the watch in the ring, and they
Yeah.
say it's 3,000 years old.
Yeah.
They've found that Nokia phone,
Yeah.
and they're saying it's a 2,000-year-old Nokia phone.
Yeah.
They've got moon boot footprints that are fossilized
Yeah.
when the dinosaurs are on the world.
Yeah.
So there is evidence out there that supports these time slips,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Because it's all good. Wow.
Okay. All righty. We're running out of time. Let's move on. Let's move
Yeah,
on.
we are.
I
Yeah,
like
let's-
this. The hand in the mirror. And I've got something to say about this guy who calls himself a researcher. But we'll have a look at that after. Here we go.
Janice Heafy Durham used to think of death as an ending, but she never will again. In 1999, Janice and Max Bessler were a California power couple. She was publisher of the Sacramento Bee, a paper that won 2 Pulitzer Prizes on her watch. He was a political consultant, stepfather to her son Tanner, and the love of her life.
He was compassionate and empathetic, and my lover and my best friend.
In May 2004, a few days shy of his 56th birthday, Max Bessler died. And that, Janice says, is when things started getting weird. Lights in her Sacramento home would flicker. Clocks would stop at the moment Max died. But then, on the anniversary date of his death, Janice was stunned by something she saw as she stood in her bathroom washing her hands.
I looked up at the mirror, and I saw a handprint, a perfectly formed, powdery handprint, large on the mirror. It was the right hand.
Her first thought was that maybe Tanner did it as a joke, but his teenage hands were much too small.
That hand looked so consistent, so similar to Max's. So I did have the wherewithal to photograph it. I wish I had done more.
I mean, I have faith in things that I can't see, but there are millions of people out there that are going to say, come on.
Exactly. And I was one of them, so I really understand it.
But things kept happening. A footprint appeared on a chair at their vacation home. Carpets would move themselves across her floor. And on the 2nd anniversary of Max's death, more powdery images on the mirror. On the 3rd, another handprint.
And there's no doubt in your mind that this was a sign from Max?
No doubt in my mind. No.
Of course, there's plenty of doubt to go around. Joe Nickel of Buffalo, New York is a paranormal investigator.
The best way is to have the lights out.
He showed me his ghost detection techniques back in 2011. He read Janice's story and came away with a different view.
Well, okay, let's just say that he's doing this. Why wouldn't he do it before her very eyes? Why not just write with his finger, I'm okay, love you, miss you?
Is there a possibility that this could be her deceased husband, Max, talking to Janice?
I don't think so.
Nichols says a lab test of any of the handprints could have settled the matter.
She didn't do that. And then the next year, she didn't again. And the next year after that, again, she didn't. One has to decide that at some point, I don't think she wanted to test it.
Because?
Well, I think she was afraid of the answer.
And despite everything you are saying, people will still believe this.
I have good news and bad news. The bad news is there are no ghosts. The good news is nobody will believe me.
Janice did some digging of her own, talking to scientists and other experts who she says convinced her it was Max. She's put it all in a new book. If Max was behind this, he's moved on. There haven't been any new handprints for a while. But Janice says she's grateful it happened at all.
What do you think Max was trying to tell you?
I think Max was trying to tell me that there's more to life than the physical form, the physical reality we live in. I'm not saying that these experiences made me feel less sad about the fact that Max lost his life at 56, but it makes me able to live with it better.
You still miss him.
I do. I do. Yes.
Take it away, Linda. I can see you're ready to go on this one.
Okay. I'm just going to go there. Joe Nickel? Man, I would love to have a sit-down conversation with you, and I invite you to contact me anytime. Because one thing that I know about myself and one thing that I know about Mike, we both communicate with the dead. And the great thing is I've got right here Mike's book, Proof of Survival. So I've already put the link in. Joe Nickel, if you want to find out how to do this, you know, I actually call this like, you know how they say guys have to go and get a big car to compensate little things in their life? I reckon that's what this guy's got, Dal. He's got this envy, you know? He's got this envy because he can't communicate.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is his big problem. It's like a jealousy where because they can't do it, they have to prove that no one else can either. But here's proof that we can do it, guys. So if you do want a copy of Mike's book, Proof of Survival, I've put the link in the comments. So you can go in. This teaches how to be a medium. And I've read it. Obviously, I've got the book. Hello. So go and buy yourself a copy, guys, for Christmas, because it is a good read and it shows you how to be a medium, to communicate. Because I think that's what this Joe Nickel can't fathom. He can't fathom that paranormal events do not just turn on and turn off. And that's why psychic abilities is never and going to be an accredited course. They can't accredit it, because no insurance company will want a hand of it because it's not always current. It's not always on.
No.
So, but, you know, the carpet's moving, Mike.
Yeah.
That could have been the dog running and just skidding across the floor. I'm sorry. It could have been explained in a million other ways. So I don't really like the carpet situation. I wish that she hadn't used it in the story because the hand and the footprint is sufficient. So we didn't need to see the carpet moving. I loved how that guy said, the guy said, bad news is there are no ghosts. Good news is nobody will believe me. Sorry, Joe Nickel. Man, come and have a chat with me and tell me why you believe in this, you know. But what I did like is how the clock stopped at the time when he died. Now,
that's a common.
My sister, she got it. It's very, very common. My sister got a clock for a wedding present from her, like my brother-in-law's, her husband's parents. This clock's been on their wall now for the past 30-odd years. My God, they've been married for 30 years, my sister. Oh, my God. But anyway, that clock does stop at the time when she died on the anniversary of her death. Drum roll there. So it's his mother, my brother-in-law's mother. She died because she was the one who gave the clock to my sister and her husband. And it does stop. They can't... They actually put new batteries in it like a week before the anniversary just to test it, and it still stops. So why, if it's going to get like a kink at 10 past the hour, it'd do it
Mm.
every hour.
Yeah.
Or if it's like 10 past 2, so the two hands hit each other, it'd be every time it goes around, not just one out of 365 days in a year.
Yeah.
So, you know, they love manipulating energy. They
Yeah.
love electronic devices coming through.
Yeah.
So, Joe Nickel, sorry, darling, I'd love to have a chat
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, he made a
Yeah,
couple
I'd
of
love to have a chat with
debatable points, but I think he let himself down with that comment. When I heard that comment, I think he just threw out all his argument completely, because there was, as I say, there were some good debatable points that he brought up,
Well,
but you know,
yeah.
I can only conclude my life has been a lie for the last God knows how many years then.
Well, darling, if your life was a lie, why would you go to the effort of writing a book?
Yeah.
You know? You know, if my life was a lie, why would I go to the extreme of writing this book?
Yeah.
You know? So
Yeah.
I'm going to do some research. I'm going to research him while we look at this next video.
Okay.
And I'm just going to see if he's got a book out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's look at this final one, Teresa's NDA. Here we go.
And then what happened was I was losing consciousness and my body started to get cold. And at that moment, I knew that I was dying. And as I looked to the left, I saw this dark figure with this evil face. It had a black cloak and it was coming towards me. And I called out to Jesus and I said, Jesus, forgive me of all my sins and throw them in the sea of forgetfulness. And then when I said that, what happened was my toes started getting cold. Then my fingers started getting cold. And then I started losing my eyesight. And the next thing I know, I was walking in a tunnel. And as I was walking through the tunnel, I felt love and peace. And I heard singing that was really loud in heaven. But I felt like I was at home. Like there was no danger. And as I entered out of the tunnel, I just stood there. And I saw in front of me these big, humongous, beautiful gates with all kinds of jewels. I looked to my left and there was nothing to my left. And I looked to my right and there looked like people standing at the right side of the gate, just singing praises to the Lord. And they were dressed in yellow robes. And so me being curious, I walked up. And as I got closer, there were just all kinds of different faces. And one lady, she looked at me and she called my name. And she had white, beautiful hair, and she was an older lady. And she looked at me and she said, Teresa, everything's gonna be all right. Then I had this younger man, good looking, blonde hair. He looked at me and he said, Teresa, tell that person to go get Pedialyte. Next thing I know, I was back in my body and my boyfriend was in the bathroom. And I said, go get Pedialyte. And so he went to the store and came back. And as I drank that Pedialyte, I could feel my organs come back to life. So a few days later, I was still having those symptoms. My son and my boyfriend were in the living room, and I was on the floor in the hallway, and I got up and I said, there's something wrong. I need to go to the hospital. So he took me to the hospital, and the doctor ran tests. And the lady that was my nurse, she had this cross. And on this cross was Jesus. And she touched my hand and she said, Teresa, everything's gonna be all right. At that time, I was going to hell. And I had to ask Jesus to forgive me. I didn't know whether that was if that was the death thing or whatever, but I know that thing was scary coming after me. And it was big. It was humongous. And it just had this evil face. It wasn't smiling or anything. Well, why didn't they tell you what your mission was here on earth? I mean, I questioned them. I questioned God, pretty much. I said, God, why did I go to heaven? I didn't see Jesus. I always see Jesus in my dream. I always see Jesus when I pray. But why did they say, Teresa, this is what you're born for. This is your mission. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have the answers.
Well, I'll tell you something, Linda, before you say, because I know you've got a few things you want to say here. I just want to point out, if people noticed the rocking movement that she was doing backwards and forwards, it's gently rocking.
I was going to mention that too. So let's hear what you have to say
Well,
about it first, Doug.
In our healing circle, often people externally, like her, while the healing is going on, do this gentle moving backwards and forwards. Often, though, it's inside them, and they're standing perfectly still, but inside their whole body's gently moving backwards and forwards. And the reason we know this is because they say, boy, I was really rocking backwards and forwards, and you say, no, you weren't, you was perfectly still. But as again, some people, while the healing is going externally, they have this gently rocking backwards and forwards. So that was all I wanted to say with that.
In my experience and training, people generally rock when they're telling the truth about a story.
Right.
It's
Really?
also, it's a sign of honesty.
Yeah.
Because it shows that we're releasing.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, it's usually in trauma,
Yeah.
where people go to like counsellors, psychologists and psychiatrists, and they sit there and they rock while they're telling their traumas to that professional. So it's a sign of truth, okay? So I've got some notes here. I'll just go into my notes. Many NDEs go into a hell and they ask for that forgiveness. So we forgive ourselves, actually, guys. So in that perspective of when we go to heaven, we think that we're in this hell situation, but if we have that conscious thought to ask for forgiveness, we're actually forgiving ourselves. And that's why we go back into the heaven experience, okay? So we don't have to have that hell experience, okay? I love how she said, I don't have all the answers. How honest is that?
Yeah.
That shows me that she's being honest here.
Yeah.
She's not saying, hey, I'm going to show pony myself and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make $1 million out of this to say my version. She's saying, honestly, I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And I really do appreciate that about her,
Me too.
Yeah, she's honest. And, for Teresa, I actually wanted to say thank you to her personally.
Yeah.
I'd love to, because that took a lot of, it does take guts and
Yeah.
that rawness to talk about something so intimate.
Yeah.
So, as we get more and more of these like real stories coming through, a lot of people will start feeling more comfortable with sharing their own personal views of what happened to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I give her a lot of credit, Mike. She was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And that rock, it reminded me of actually someone I used to know, and that's how she used to meditate.
Right.
She'd sit there with her eyes shut, meditating.
Yeah.
And it's so calming just to watch them rocking like that. So, I really appreciate
Yeah, I mean,
her story.
sometimes it's actually when I'm doing the healing in the circle, sometimes my eyes are closed, and sometimes I do that rocking backwards and forwards. Sometimes they bring me right the way back, and I don't know how I'm actually still not falling over. But this gentle rocking seems to have something to do with the healing process. So,
Well, can we go back to Joe Nickel for a moment?
yeah, go on.
Okay, I'll tell you what I just found, Mike.
Yeah,
This is off Wikipedia, because
Right.
he's on Wikipedia, believe it or not.
right.
We look at people who get onto Wikipedia. We'd all like to be there. It only takes a certain amount of people to get onto Wikipedia. You can actually put yourself on Wikipedia. Did you know that? You can actually put yourself on there. So this is what it says under career. Nickel has worked professionally as a stage magician, a carnival pitchman, private detective, blackjack dealer, riverboat manager, university where am I going? I've just lost it. University instructor, author, and paranormal investigator. He lists more than 1,000 personas on his website. Wow. So he's actually written over 30 books on different genres, which include 4 main categories: religion, forensic, paranormal, and mysteries. So this is a guy who got a bachelor degree at Kentucky. Yep, University of Kentucky in 1967.
Right.
And now he has a life mission of making your and my life seem like it doesn't really exist. So we've all got, this is where we've got to remember, Mike, because we're at the end of the show. This is where we really do get a message. And I think that this is a message because she was the one who actually told me, research him. Why didn't she tell me a week ago when I watched that file? Why did she not want me to do it now live on air, research him? So I did while we were just watching Teresa's NDE story. We have to learn that everybody has their free will to their own choices and decisions in life.
Yeah.
We all must forego ego ultimately, and we must allow others to be who they are without judgment or accusation, because we are now in times where we are on the fence, and that fence is pretty wobbly. We're either falling left or we're falling right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are falling into the negative downward spirals.
Yeah.
I don't want to be on that side of the fence.
No.
So Joe Nickel, if you do watch this video, which I don't think he would, because he, as an empath, picking up that this guy is a bit of an egotistical, so and so. But, we look at people like Teresa that we've just spoken about, and her experience. Why would she go to so much effort to get little or no fame and glory out of her situation when we've got somebody else on the other side of the spectrum where he gets invited to all these conferences, seminars, etc. as a speaker, where he's got himself on Wikipedia and he's trying to debunk psychic abilities. So I honestly believe that this man is like Thaddeus Bradley, whatever his name was, out of the movie Now You See Me, They were all magicians,
Yeah.
and it was actually Morgan Freeman who plays Bradley, and he tries to debunk what the magicians do.
Right.
Turns out he was a very famous magician himself.
Right.
Ha 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 ha. So we've got to look at the ulterior motives of people. Trust that we're all trying to do our best in a world gone mad.
Right.
And ultimately, if other people don't specifically go along with our grain of thoughts, it's okay to say thank you for your opinion and thank you for being different to mine. It's okay to be like that, guys.
Now shove
Because
off.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we're all trying our best, and that's the main thing
Yeah.
in this world gone mad.
Yeah.
Okay? And don't listen to the news, guys.
No.
Okay?
Yeah, we were talking. I guess it's a good way to finish the show. Last night, that how often do you want to listen to all this? We know what's going on. Keep your ear to the ground by all means, but the real information comes from the heart. And once you switch off from the news and the newspapers, and you start to listen to your heart, you activate it much, much stronger. And it will never let you down. Never let you down. The only caveat to this is the brain might start to get in and say, don't listen to the heart. That's all wrong. Just switch it off. Trust this. And the only way you can do this is to reduce the amount of information that you're receiving. Because if you don't know the source, and therefore you don't know the agenda behind the source, you can't get real information or accurate information. It can only come from here, because we have all the information that was, is, and will be. So this is what I do, and obviously with Jean, and it proves quite accurate, more than what we see in the papers and on the news.
And that's what you've got to look at. We go past that point of, could this be coincidence?
Yeah.
Or is it accurate?
Yeah.
Even 70% of the times.
Yeah.
And if it goes more than 70% of the times where it's accurate, so you know it's no longer 50-50, good or right or wrong, or correct or incorrect, then you've got to say, damn, there is something to this.
Yeah.
And, the more we try our best, the more we open up our heart chakra, the more we trust our own innate abilities of being psychic, etc.
Yeah.
And the more we learn to trust our gut.
Yeah.
So we do hear those messages when they come to us. I remember 3 years ago, and I sat there, and they first came out with a certain medical procedure, or 2 years ago, I should say. And, it was so funny how many people that I knew, they said, I've got a gut feeling, don't do it. And the ones who just ran freely and got it. That spoke so much to me, Mike. And now look at what's coming out with all that, A certain company starting with P, that sounds like F, if you know who I'm talking about. They've just downloaded their next batch of what people don't want to see, and it's something like 9,000 pages of people who have got sick from it or died. 9,000 pages of just a name, age, sex, and date of way that they passed, and then the next line, then the next line, another person, another person, another person. So if they know those statistics, and they're saying it's only 1% that's getting logged and documented, that's 900,000 pages.
Yeah. Well, we can use percentages all we like, but even if 9,000 is 1%, that's 9,000 people, 9,000 mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, children, babies. So, 9,000 is a lot of people by anyone's book. So, yeah.
Oh, Mike, we've just got to do our best. Guys, before we go, one thing I do want to promote, on the link to Lulu that I've already put in the comments, Mike's actually got a book there. It's called Reversing Disease Naturally. Now, the funny thing is, Mike actually published that years before this all started. So if you do want to go and get your hands on that, I've already put the link in the description.
Thank you.
Mate, you're doing a great job. I love
This
promoting
was
you.
prior to 5G, so there actually isn't any mention of 5G in there, but you know, there's a lot of information in there how you can get stuff out of your body.
Well, that's what everybody's now looking for,
Yeah.
Mike. They want to know how to get this medical procedure out.
Yeah.
You know, I honestly, I don't know where I'm at on the fence with it, because it attaches to the DNA structure through the mRNA, and I don't know if there is an out with it to detox or pull it out. I don't think that there is. I'm getting told that there's really not a good way of doing it.
All I can tell you, Linda, is Jean said it is possible, and therefore it can be done, although it's too late for some people. That's true.
Of course.
The problem is, what she was saying is, there isn't a one-size-fits-all serum. That's the thing. So
That's exactly right.
yeah,
You know, some people drink coffee 10,000 cups a day and they don't get wired. I have half a cup for breakfast and I'm wired for the whole day. You know, everyone's affected by different things. You know, we're all individual.
It's the same. You know, Elizabeth can, if she goes without a coffee, she'll get a headache. Since I've been sorting out my blood pressure, 55 days there now, no coffee, no caffeine, doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. Well, I only drink about half a cup of a morning. You know, when I used to do first aid training, I used to drink about 4 cups a day. And, you know, I feel better now than I did back then. You know, I haven't touched alcohol now in about 6 years. I think it's been since I've had a last alcoholic drink. And I, you know, don't smoke anymore. So, wow. You know, I actually said to my daughter the other day, if I had seen myself 10 years ago and said, Linda, in 10 years, you're not going to drink, you're not going to smoke, you're not going to do this, you're not going to be doing that, you're going to be drinking this. Look at this concoction that I drink now. Ginger, turmeric, cayenne pepper, honey and lemon. And, you know, if someone said that to me 10 years ago, I would have just gone, crazy. But we're in crazy times, which bring on crazy things. We've all got to act differently. But at the end of the day, as long as we don't judge and accuse what other people are doing, it's their right, it's their own free will. As long as we do what we think is right by us, that's the main thing.
Good.
Yeah.
And on that note, Linda, I've got to split. I've got to depart. You've got to go to bed or whatever.
Rest this again.
Yeah,
we've got to go to bed. Yep.
And
my daughter's back at school, so she got homework today. Yay.
Good for her. We'll see you all next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a good week, guys.
Take care,
Stay
everyone.
safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.